So next we'll do the more interesting exercise, which is to add in the tax and see how that affects our economic surplus. Okay, so I've gone ahead and pushed my supply curve up by $6, the amount of the tax, and we've got a new equilibrium in this market. So what's our new equilibrium? Well, this is the price the buyers are going to pay, $16. If we trace down from our equilibrium, we get the price the sellers are going to receive, this $10, and 50,000 units are going to be traded. Okay, so here, how are we going to add in our consumer and producer surplus? Well, first off, notice that we've defined our tax revenue here within this rectangle. So there we go, there is our tax revenue. Drawing the tax revenue on first actually makes our life a lot easier in showing the deadweight loss and showing the consumer and producer surpluses, because the way we're going to show them is not overlapping with this tax. Okay, so first off, we want the consumer surplus. Let's go back to the definition. It's the area under the demand curve and above the price the buyers pay. But the buyers pay $16, right? So this area up in here is our consumer surplus. Producer surplus is a little bit trickier. It's the area between the price the buyers receive, the sellers receive, and their cost of production. Now we could do this in two different ways. We could think of that as being with the tax or without the tax. We could think of the $16 being the price the sellers receive, but they have a cost of $6, so the supply curve represents their cost, and now that area in there going down wherever it happens to go, wherever we stop it, that is our producer surplus, but that's not the most common way to show the producer surplus. What's more common is to use this price without tax that the sellers are going to receive, $10, and the original supply curve that shows their costs without the tax. Then that area in there is their producer surplus. Okay, now if we compare, I guess first we should say this tax area we count as surplus, which may seem a little bit strange to you, but remember we had this assumption that tax revenues are equally good as money in the hands of buyers, money in the hands of sellers. Well, consumer surplus is nothing more than extra benefit in the hands of buyers. It's money left over that they might have spent on a thing but didn't have to because the price was lower. Producer surplus is essentially profit for firms. It's where they get to sell things for a higher price than it costs them to produce. Tax is also a benefit. It's a benefit to the government or whoever the government spends that money on. We had this further assumption that we were going to treat it as exactly as good as money in the hands of buyers and sellers, so then we will just count producer surplus plus tax plus consumer surplus as the economic surplus in this market. But we've missed some, right? This little triangle is missing. If we compare to this guy here, we had that little triangle filled in when there was no tax. When there is a tax, we don't, so that little triangle is our deadweight loss. It's the amount of economic surplus that is not produced in this market because of the tax. Why is it not being produced? Well, because the tax reduces the number of transactions that take place. These transactions in here no longer take place because that tax exists. Those transactions could be beneficial. You know, if we had this person here who's willing to pay $15, trade with the seller here who's got a cost of production of $12, then they could benefit in principle. The problem is they can't if there's a tax, because somebody's got to pay a $6 tax and there's only $3 of economic surplus being generated by that trade. No one can afford to pay the tax, and hence that trade cannot take place, a deadweight loss.